As ever, there's always a mixture of people here. Some will know me, some have known me for a long, long time, and maybe some have only just spoken to a little bit, or maybe not at all. So it's always a bit funny to know quite where to start. But I've been a member at the church here since it started, and even kind of a part of what went before it as well. But I've been living and working in South Africa for over 15 years now. So I often give an update on what I'm doing out there, but this time Nathan asked me if I would link it with your sermon series looking at Bible characters who've said, "Here I am." So here I am to do what I've been asked to do this morning. So I was thinking on the fact that initially we say, "Here I am," when we are first saved, and we've thought this morning taking communion, when we come to some sort of understanding of what Jesus has done for us, and we can give him our lives. We say, "Here I am." So for me, that was when I was probably about 10 years old. I don't know exactly what age I was, and I'm not sure how much I understood back then. I understood however much you do as a child, but presumably I had some sort of understanding that I had done wrong things and that Jesus had died so that I could be forgiven from those things. In Colossians, if you go on to the next one, in Colossians it just explains a little bit more about what that means to be saved. It says, "For he rescued us from the dominion of darkness and brought us into the kingdom of the Son he loves, in whom we have redemption, the forgiveness of sins." So it was interesting to me when I've just was given this book for my birthday. It's called My Father is the Gardener. It was interesting to read a comment on that. It said, if we stopped there, we're saved, stop there, it'd be absolutely fine. God wouldn't love us any less if that's as far as we got. But at the beginning of the year, I needed a new doormat. And the thought that came to my head, there was one that I looked at that said, "You have reached your destination." I given you an example if you do the next slide. You've reached your destination. So if we just are saved and we reach our destination, that would be fine. But we know that that's not where it should stop. That should be actually the beginning of our journey, is giving our lives to God and saying, "Here I am. How do you want to use me?" And in the book, she goes on to say, in order to fully enter into all that God has for us, we need to accept his lordship. We've sung songs this morning about saying, "Jesus, I give you my life. I make you the Lord of my life. I surrender my will to your will." That involves considering, what plans do you have for me, God? He says, "I know the plans I have for you." We kind of can ask the question, God, what is it that you want for me? His desire is for us to become mature in our walk with him, to learn to hear his voice and to submit to his will for our lives. So saying, "Here I am," shouldn't just be the end of the story. There's always more to learn, more to experience, and a bigger picture to see. The character that brings to my mind when I hear the words "Here I am" was the same one that Hazel mentioned when she was speaking the other week. It says in Isaiah, "In the year Uzziah died, I saw the Lord high and exalted." And he goes on to describe the awesome holiness of God and how that brought him to the place of realization that he was nothing, he was unworthy, unholy. I haven't had an experience like that. But I remember hearing someone preach on that passage when I was a teenager. But of course it goes on to say, not just, so when the Lord said, "Whom shall I send?" he doesn't just say, "Here I am." He actually goes on to say, "Send me." So to me that's significant, that actually it's not just about saying, "Here I am," but also, where do you want to send me? I can't say that is the message that I heard that I heard that then made me think, right, then I must go somewhere. But at that time there was lots of talk about being sent and going to the nations. There were prophetic words for the whole movement of churches. There's the group of churches that we are part of used to be called coastlands, because most of those churches were along the south coast. there was a picture of the arrow being pulled, of an archer pulling back his bow, and the idea of there being more churches up through the country, but with the thought that the arrow would then be released into the nations. So it became known as New Frontiers, and then later New Frontiers International. So that was just one picture, but it was what we were hearing at the time. It was, as I was growing up, it was very much in the words that were being spoken at places like Stoneleigh, and but there were songs too, and songs are powerful. There's all sorts of things. I don't remember the words, the dates of these different songs that we sang, but some of you will remember the next one I put up there, World Changers. But we've been called to change the world. Jesus, we've heard your great command, motivated by your love. We will change the world. As a teenager, I was singing songs like that. There was another one, Go Forth, Take the Gospel. The nations are waiting for us, waiting for the song that we will sing, waiting for the gospel. Another one said, let your glory fall in this room. May it go forth from here to the nations. So, we're singing these songs, and actually we can make them, Janet said, make it your prayer. But actually, if we sing them, often we are making those words, they become a part of who we are, and they shape our thinking and, the direction of our lives ultimately. So, for me, this is what I was sort of, in my teenage years, these are the sorts of things that I was hearing and singing and saying that were changing me. Around about that time, I went off to college. I joined the Christian Union there and became the international secretary for a year. And part of my role, sorry, I just distracted my sister. Doing some sort of sign language, sorry, Helen. Part of my role was to ensure that the international students who came to our college were welcomed and looked after. So I would say there's an encouragement just because I heard the call to go, and that for me meant going to the nations. Actually, we can go where we are. We've actually got the nations very much amongst us here in Chertsey. And so for some of us, going just means reaching out to the people that we come in contact with where we are. So that was part of the role that I was doing. But another part of what I was doing there as the International Secretary was to encourage people to go on short-term mission at that point. And at the end of the year, I went to Uganda just for a month, but really enjoyed my time in Africa. I think God probably already put Africa a bit in my heart even before that. There were songs, Friends First, was the African feel to that music. I enjoyed that even, I don't know when we'd be 13, 14 years old or something, but we came back and we were singing these songs that we'd liked. At college, I also did, one of my subjects was tropical Africa. I was a geography student. So, Africa was kind of in there, but that was the first time I went in about 1993. There were also a couple of prophetic words, and I know some of you have been doing the prophetic course, but the prophetic shapes, like the movement of churches, it shapes the church, it shapes us. And there was a word at something called Clear Vision. It was an event that we went to over New Year one time as a young people's group to meet with other people, young people from other groups, to pray and to seek God. And a prophetic word came at that. At the time we were singing a song that said, there's a place where the streets shine. And obviously that's a song about talking about one day being in heaven, a place where the streets shine with the glory of God. But someone brought a prophetic word on the back of that, and specifically for me, saying that they felt, I don't even remember who it was, but that they felt that for me there would be a place where the streets would shine. And it might not necessarily be like that for other people, but for me, that would be the place that God wanted me to be. After that, I went to Burundi, not immediately then, but that could very much fit into that picture of not being a very beautiful place. It was very poor there. It's one of the poorest countries in the world. Life was hard. There wasn't much available in the shops. There'd been an embargo on because of the civil war. We were very restricted in our movements because really it wasn't very safe at the time. There was a curfew on so that we couldn't be out late at night. It was hot. The mosquitoes could give you malaria, all sorts of things that made it hard. But knowing that it was where God wanted me to be at that time, for me then, it was the best place to be. I think there was someone who said words to that effect, the safest place to be is where God wants you. So as long as I was where God wanted me to be, I didn't actually fear for myself in that situation. Clarence, on the other hand, if you look at the next picture, Clarence, on the other hand, is a very beautiful place. People go there on holiday. Why does it do that sometimes? It was the right way up on my computer. I wanted to show you that it's beautiful in the autumn and in the spring and in the summer and in the winter. We're surrounded by mountains and it's a very beautiful spot, but not without its frustrations. Most recently being the power cuts, load shedding as they call it out there. There were days when we could go up to 8 hours a day without power. Usually we knew when it was going to happen, but that doesn't sort of lessen the fact that it's actually very frustrating, that you can't use the internet and you can't do the things that you want to do. And you'll often hear people out there say TIA. I expect our South Africans can relate to that. This is Africa. Often people just shrug their shoulders. This is Africa. When things happen and things go wrong, that's the way it is. Not without its frustrations, but it's for me, it's the right place that I feel that God wants me for the time being, at least. Been a whole lot longer than I ever expected it to be. I thought maybe it was going to be 2 or 3 years, but it's been now more than 15. When Nathan asked me to speak, he said he'd also like me to share about personal sacrifices that I've made. I was reminded of another prophetic word. This one wasn't to me specifically, but I particularly felt that God was speaking to me at that time. Again, it was at Clear Vision, so some of you might have been there, might remember. There were 3 specific things that someone stood up and said, I really feel that God's asking that there would be people who would be willing to lay down career, family, marriage. They were the 3 things that they said. I wasn't very career-minded, so that I could shrug and say, no problem. Family, that was a bigger deal. But at that time, by then in my early 20s, laying down the idea of getting married, that was particularly hard. And I remember the person saying as well, don't just say, yes, I'll lay it down, remembering that when Abraham did that, he saw the ram in the thicket and he didn't actually have to sacrifice his son. So when you lay it down, don't assume that God's going to do that. You've got to be willing that actually he might not. And so I didn't jump up with excitement and say, yes, that's great. It's hard to make a sacrifice. But I felt I needed to respond, so I did stand up, tears running down my face, but at that point I was very much, okay, here I am, God. But God has been good. To do that song, I love that song. All my days you've been faithful. All my days you've been so, so good to me. So each step along the way, the different places that I've been, God has given me special friends, really good friends that have kind of been with me through the different times in my life, different schools that I've been at. Let me just take a drink. So I'm very thankful that he's provided for me in that way. And as a family, I've been very blessed to be able to come back from South Africa twice a year. Not everyone is able to do that when they go overseas, but for me that's been special to be able to do that. Had various members of the family come out and visit me. Got, not this one yet. This one maybe next year. I keep on persuading, trying to encourage her that it would be good for her to see where I've been. Maybe Dad will come again at some point. We'll see. Anyway, but various different ones of them have been to see me, which has been really great. Just to know that they're so supportive of my being there. I know for some people, they go away and it's actually hard because their family doesn't understand. Why are you going there? Why are you, working as a volunteer when you could be earning money? And, some people don't understand that. But, I'm thankful that my family's kind of with me and behind me in that. And I was going to say something else along those lines. Yeah, just that God's graciousness actually in the being away. So when my grandmother passed away, I happened to be in India with Adrian and Stephanie and the family. So I wasn't kind of on my own when that happened. And then, as many of you know, when my mum passed away just a couple of years ago, I was able to be here. You know, I wasn't far away all by myself in South Africa, then having to try and get back after having heard the news that she'd died. I was here. I was able to be with her for that week. And so I really just see God's goodness in that. And yeah, very thankful that he's been gracious to me in that way. I also feel very blessed to be able to do what I'm doing in South Africa. So for those of you who don't know, I'm trained as a teacher. I worked here in Stepgates in Chertsey for about 5 years before I went to South Africa. That was quite a hard time. I felt like, I can't do it. I try my best, and my best isn't good enough. I don't really want to be a teacher anymore. And so when someone said about going to South Africa, it's like, why would I go to South Africa? I can't teach here. Why does God want, people who can't teach? I didn't feel that was a great idea to begin with. It was funny how it kind of happened. I said to the girl, if I don't get the grade 2s next year, I've been enjoying working with the year 2s. If I don't get them next year, then maybe I'll take that as a sign that God's saying that to go to South Africa. And the head teacher called me in that week and said, no, the maternity cover teacher wants to come back. I was covering maternity cover. That teacher wanted to come back and teach her grade 2s again. So, okay. So I asked for some more information. She sent me the application form, which I then filled in, and that was the process of me beginning to go out to South Africa. But I feel that I'm in a place where I'm now making use of the things that I learnt while I was there. So experience of, the experiences and things that I've learnt along the way, I feel that I'm now actually able to use in the job that I'm doing, helping children who are struggling with their learning, training teachers, supporting staff. I'm also a member of the senior management team out there, so able to support the principal and involved in decision making that goes on for the school. So I'm enjoying all the variety of all the different things that I do. If you go to the next slide, the school is on the edge of the township area, and it serves mostly the township children. It's in a town called Clarens, which is just on the northern border of Lesotho. So from Clarens, you can see the mountains of Lesotho. Not so far away. You could actually walk into Lesotho pretty much from where we are. Within just over those hills, we could walk down into the river that's the border between the two. It's a small Christian school, about 20 children in a class. The vision of the school is to keep it as a small family type school. If you go on to the next one, there's about 170 children there from the ones in yellow, the little ones there. Preschool, they come at the age of about 5, and then we go up to grade 7, which is 13 years old. And for 9 years I worked as a class teacher, mostly with the 9-10-year-olds, but now my main role is a special needs coordinator, which I've talked before, I've told you a little bit about it. If you go on to the next one, I do all sorts of different things. I work with individuals. Where I can, I work with pairs or small groups, particularly helping with phonics and children who are struggling to learn to read, but also just depending on what their needs are. Sometimes that involves directing, getting other help in for them, either other expertise, occupational therapist, or some of them go to... We've got a counsellor who's a lady from the church who can work with the children. But if they need things like educational psychologists, then paperwork needs to be filled in. So I'm involved in doing that. Supporting teachers, because actually children are most of the time in their own classes. So I sometimes take them out and work with them one-to-one, but also the teachers have to have them the rest of the time. So kind of help to give them some ideas of how they can help. And then another of my main things is to organise exam support so they get opportunity to work in a small group with someone who can either read for them or write for them if necessary, that sort of thing. So last time I spoke about a little girl called Aurora Sang. Some of you might remember. She's profoundly blind. And she is wearing glasses, as you can see, but they actually are not, it's not going to improve her sight such that she'll be able to learn to read. They kind of help her just with a general getting around kind of. She's very bright and has got good understanding, but sometimes I would walk in the class and see that she just wasn't able to be involved in the different activities that were going on. So when I spoke at Christmas, I said that we were hoping to get some funding so that she could have an assistant with her who would just be on the lookout for how could we adapt the activity to make it so that she could be more involved in what's going on. And it's been great to get feedback from that teacher. Sometimes she's been working with a group of children who are doing group reading, and she'll look on the tablet and see can she find that book online, and then the girl can listen to it, and then that she can join in the discussion with the others. So things like that. Sometimes there are things that can just be adapted to make it so that she can be more easily involved. But in the long run, she probably will have to go to a special school, because out there, really the only way forward is for her to learn the Braille and to use a Braille machine. That would then enable her to type and be more independent in her written communication. At the moment, it would rely on telling someone and then writing it down for her. But we have got an assistant for this year, so we keep her for a little bit longer, which is good. Our year runs from January to December. So it is beginning to be the time to think about, what about next year? Is now the time that she needs to go off to another school or what? But yeah, we pray for wisdom in that one. I'm also involved in the church. If you look at the next one, we do something called Chosen Kids with the children, and I'm heading up the team. So that's for, 5 to 12-year-olds, something like that. We can have as many as 80, sometimes it's 30, but week by week it would be different. But we do it a bit like a kids club kind of style, where it's very much from the front, so that works. We'd like to try and do a little bit more working in groups this next term, so we're going to try a slightly different setup. We'll see how that goes. We've done sometimes once a term, I've tried to get them in more people to come out with us so we can split them into smaller groups. Because a lot of these children, they're just there on their own. They're not coming from Christian families, and they're not just there because their parents are in main church. They've just come by themselves. So it means they don't necessarily have people at home who are modelling how to pray or giving them opportunity to learn to pray themselves. So I quite like the idea of getting them together in a smaller group where they're more able to maybe share things that they'd like to pray about, but also then to also be encouraged to pray. So it's been good to be able to do that. So we did it last year a couple of times, and I thought I was going to try and build it into the programme every term, that we do something along those lines. So if you go into the next thing, I find there's always lots and lots of things to be thankful for. Thankful that although saying "here I am" does involve sacrifice, there can also be many blessings to enjoy along the way. So I am very thankful that I can enjoy all the things that I'm involved with, both at school and at church. The good foundations that are put in place, and the fruit that will bear in years to come. When I was back last time, we were praying for provision of an Afrikaans teacher, and God did provide again, as he always does, sometimes a bit later than we kind of hoped for, but it did work itself out eventually, that everything was covered. So that was good. And we were also looking for a grade 2 teacher, so we've got a full complement of staff again at the moment. And also thankful for the funding that came in so that we could employ an assistant, especially for Aurora Sang. So, yeah, that was good. And then things to pray for, always wisdom. When I first took on this role, I went to Dubai for some training, and the lady was asking me what I do, and she said, sounds like you're spreading yourself very thinly. There's so much you could do. It does take wisdom to kind of know what I should focus on, and always pray for that. Still praying for a miracle of healing for Aurora sang. We know that God can heal the blind. And it would just be such an amazing testimony in the community because everyone knows that she can't see. So one day I'd love to come back and report that she can now see, but we can pray for these things. My niece Rachel is coming back with me when I go on Tuesday. She's just coming for 3 weeks, but pray for her that she has a good time. I'm sure she will be a blessing. And we're always looking for sponsors for the school, particularly to support the more vulnerable children. We do get some government subsidy, and some parents pay fees. It's kind of a sliding scale, so some pay more if they can, and others aren't paying very much. So sponsorship is used as a way of getting the extra money that we need to do what we do. But so that's kind of as much as I was going to say. Keith said that maybe there would be some things that we could pray for. You could pray for me, but also there are things maybe that I've said that maybe can be things that could be prayed for too. I think the prophetic, I think, has been a key thing in my sort of journey of what's God saying, and actually let's ask that God speaks to you, but also maybe He speaks to you in a way that helps someone else to hear what God's saying for them. So maybe that's one particular thing. I don't know. Maybe you've got others, but. All right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Well done.